And that tells me that it's more probably about politics than the actual letter of the law. And I think that will help the situation if a mom has another alternative to raising it herself. To have a two-state solution, you have to have two sides that want that solution. You could start oil exploration to see what is there. That would be an issue that he would be addressing as president. Is there another shoe to drop, something we don't know about? And if not, then why is he gone?
And Rod Thomson, president of the Sarasota Republican Club and founder of the revolutionaryact.com. And Rod, your reaction?
Well, I disagree on the quality of the announcement. I agree with the policy, but this is another classic case of Trump doing the right thing the wrong way. He does this on a consistent basis. He was doing everything fine. He had Mattis, he had the whole team investigating it, looking into it, seeing if this was something they wanted to do, if they wanted to adjust it or whatever. Mattis has definitely been emphasizing getting back to making it a war-fighting machine and all. Then Mattis is on vacation, and in the morning he tweets out a whole change in policy. It's like, oh, come on. It's very frustrating to watch. Well, obviously, we'll discuss the merits of the policy as the show goes on.
Right.
But my reaction is like, yeah, I didn't see it coming, but should have.
And why do you think he's choosing this route? Is this being supported by maybe some of his staff members, or do you think they're feeling the way you're feeling and saying, why are you putting these tweets out right now?
Gosh, it's really hard to get in the president's head. But I don't know for sure, because during the campaign, he was actually very transgender friendly. And he slammed the North Carolina bathroom law, and I disagreed with him on that. But he was that. But I think Mattis and maybe a lot of the others were having some influence on him. What triggered him this morning, I don't know to do it, but it looked like he was probably going to be trending this way all along. I don't think it's from his family, because his family is socially liberal as a rule, so I doubt that it's family-wise.
I was going to ask you about that. Of course, we'll get more into, like you said, the merits of it. But I do want to ask you that on the campaign trail, he was very adamant about supporting the LGBT community. So then you get this announcement, and I think a lot of people in the community are thinking, what is going on?
Right, and that would be reasonable enough. But this is maybe one of the few respects in which Donald Trump acts like a normal politician. He says one thing on the campaign trail and then does something different in office.
And right. Rod, what are you hearing on the other end of the spectrum, maybe from supporters, but also active military and veterans who are in support of this?
Right, so I would take the approach a little bit not from the transgender community's point of view, but from the military point of view. And from the military point of view, the purpose of the U.S. military is to destroy the enemy's capabilities to wage war against us. That's the sole purpose. That's why we have a U.S. military. And it's not really supposed to be a petri dish for social justice experimentation. I think President Obama made it that in a number of ways, and certainly in the last year of his administration, he took it further. I think that's a mistake. I think that can undermine the ability of the Air Force or the military to do that. Specifically, I know of a guy who was injured in Iraq, lost his arm, and he explained how he was in a 12-man fire base out in the middle of nowhere, about an hour's drive, probably crummy roads from anybody. They got food every 8 days. They went out on their patrols every day. He said it was an incredibly stressful situation. They had tracers at night. They had IEDs on their patrols. And the younger guys and those that weren't mentally tough and stable and emotionally strong were snapping all the time, and they had to periodically rotate them out. His point, from his experience, would be if you put somebody that's transgender in there, which to some degree, and they may disagree with this, on the face of it suggests somebody that's mentally and emotionally confused at the moment, if they're transgendering, if they're looking at that, if they're not sure that who they are, putting them in that super high stress situation clearly undermines the effectiveness of that unit, and so he would be very much opposed to it.
I want to point out, Rod, that several Republicans have come out in opposition to this, including just recently, I saw on Twitter just before the show started, Joni Ernst, who is a female veteran Republican, and she says she is against this policy. She doesn't agree with using taxpayer money for gender reassignment surgery, but she agrees that transgender people should be able to serve in the military. What is your response to many of these people in the GOP against this?
Right, the Republican Party is actually, in my opinion, is a party of more diverse ideas than the Democrat Party. We're not quite as monolithic in our thinking. However, I would say that still those numbers, that last vote that was referenced earlier, it was only like 20-some that crossed over. It's still by and large, most all Republicans oppose it. There was the Congresswoman from Miami. It was a Republican. I'm sorry, I can't say her name right now, but we all know it. She has a son who's transgender. So she clearly has personal experience. It's clearly going to affect her opinion. That makes total sense to me. And so you can see that happening. But in my discussions with Republicans and conservatives, it's almost uniform support for this policy and severe opposition to what President Obama did 7 years into his administration.
And Rod, I do want to start with you kind of answering that question. Do you think that this will actually become a policy? What's the likelihood that we will see this actually go from tweet to true enactment?
I would say it's likely. I would say it's certainly more likely than not because, you know, the president's usually looking for a win. And since he came out strongly with it today and there was a lot of backlash, I'm not sure that he's going to be quick to back down. One thing the president does is he punches back. And I don't like the way he does it all the time, but he does that consistently. So I would actually give it pretty good odds of being enacted. And I'd also like to say that I understand the argument that it's discrimination, but we actually discriminate in the military in a number of ways. I mean, if you have ADHD, if you have mood swings, I think in the setup for it, asthma, I think that is a disqualifier. If these things you develop once you're in the military, then it's taken care of. But a lot of these things, last I knew, being nearsighted and flat-footed, there's a lot of ways we discriminate because we have a specific purpose for the military.